So me and my teammate are arguing that that physician-assisted suicide should be legal in all states. My opponent had an argument that doing this is actually breaking the Hippocratic Oath, but a number of other similar oaths have also been written, and today nearly every medical school requires some sort of oath it graduates, although most are seen as ceremonial or non-obligatory compared to those taken by like a judge or president or another kind of politician. And also another thing about the oath is that abortion isn't breaking the Hippocratic Oath, so why should physician-assisted suicide do the same? My opponent also mentioned palliative care. However, palliative care is a very expensive alternative. According to Michael Olive, it found that the average cost of care for those receiving palliative care was $95 a day, which equals $34,000 per year extra. And although a person can still prolong their expected life, the quality of the life is generally not very good. The quality of life is worsened when a terminal illness is present, then the quality of life for the individual can drop severely and rapidly. There's also a huge problem with just the price of Medicare in general. Medical technology fails to save loved ones sometimes, but even if it's successful or not, it leaves a huge dent on families' bank accounts. The cost of maintaining a dying person has been estimated as ranging from about $2,000 to almost $10,000 per day or per month, and most families just simply cannot afford that. Of course, most families just don't consider the cost while their loved one is dying because generally they just don't care. They want their loved one to live as would anyone else. However, once the person unfortunately passes, they still have to struggle with a huge hospital bill and are often subject to financial ruin. My opponent did have an argument that there are some misdiagnoses and patients who sometimes live longer than expected. However, the fate of the patient is generally the same. There are some anomalies as to where the patients don't have terminal illness or don't have a terminal illness. However, even if they misdiagnose the patient's estimated time to live, the reality is the patient is that they're facing an end-of-life scenario, and even if they decide against PAD, physician-assisted death or suicide, there's still an excellent chance that death will be coming for them soon. Another argument I'd like to make is that my teammate also brought up is that patients should have a choice to live. According to Crystal Aries, people should have a choice to dictate what happens to them. Some people want to live as long as they possibly can, which is perfectly fine. But if a severe medical condition makes that life unbearable, there should be options which allow it as well. There's also an argument on healthresearchfunding.org that claims most physicians believe it should be allowed to have physician-assisted suicide or death. In 2006, a Gallup poll asked if physicians should be allowed by legal means to end a person's life using a painless procedure if that person had a fatal disease that could not be cured and if that person and their family requested this procedure. Some 69% of those responding answered yes to that question. And there is also another form to prolong someone's life called hospice. However, hospice is just, it's too expensive. It's around the same as a palliative care. And per day, there's a flat per day fee that you have to pay in full, which causes problems because there's some examples where patients were denied some diagnostic tests just because they could not pay for the procedure in full. There's also an agreement around the general public that physician-assisted suicide should be allowed, according to Joseph Cheney from August 2018, despite the rejections from major religious groups and the lack of consensus among practitioners, large portions of the general public support physician-assisted suicide. In 13 of the 15 countries surveyed in 2015, more than half those interviewed supported the legalization of physician-assisted suicide.